She finished 35th at the CrossFit Games, not making it past the cuts on Saturday. So why is Elisa Fuliano so important? Vediamo. Ciao a tutti e bentornato, or welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be talking about Italy's own Elisa Fuliano and why I think she's someone worth talking about. Now, if you don't know who Elisa is, she's a CrossFit Games athlete, but she's someone that's really got it all. Brains, beauty, artistic talent, of course the fitness, as well as a full-time job and rheumatoid arthritis. So this is why I thought she's someone really worth talking about, seeing the struggle that she's gone through. But I would say at this point as well, if there's someone that you've seen at the CrossFit Games or someone you know or a story you've heard that you think is worth highlighting, please let me know in the comments, because sometimes the spotlight that shines so brightly on the big names at the CrossFit Games can kind of blind us to some of the other incredible stories that come out from this event. So in recent years, we've seen more and more talk about CrossFit becoming professional. We just heard Todd Melanie say about CrossFit Games athletes being professional athletes. And we see those at the highest level that are pursuing CrossFit full time, or at least those that are popular enough to have the sponsorship that they need in place so that they can also pursue CrossFit full time. And then we have the commentators at the game telling us that you can't do this part-time anymore, you need to be full-time. Or in the latest documentary, it started with Tia Toomey explaining how she is a full-time professional athlete. We've also seen the increase in training camps, which allows athletes to pool their resources so that they too can focus more time on training to make it to the CrossFit Games. And then when we look at the future of CrossFit or the athletes that are breaking through, generally we see the rookies as having already had experience within CrossFit. They don't have a background in another sport, their background is CrossFit, maybe even having previously been to the CrossFit Games in the age group divisions as a teen competitor. So we could say, looking at all of that the landscape of CrossFit has changed. It's not what it once was. And that's why I think that Elisa's story is really interesting, encouraging, and inspirational. Because Elisa is relatively new to CrossFit. In fact, she's only been doing it for about 3 years. She's done the Open twice, making it to quarterfinals in 2021 and all the way to the Games this year. And then just looking at her journey to the Games, how she got there. So she qualified 5th at Strength in Depth. So one way to look at that is that she just managed to sneak in. She took that final spot. But just look at the athletes she beat out to earn that spot. 2 former CrossFit Games champions in Catherine Davidsdottir and Samantha Briggs. And then we could look at Elisa's background. So she has a background in gymnastics, which seems to be a real advantage for people that move into CrossFit. But she had to stop that because of a neck injury. She spent a little bit of time doing pole vault, but now she says she does CrossFit. And when I say she does CrossFit, not as a full-time athlete. She's actually got a full-time job as a digital designer, creating apps and things like that. She gets to do CrossFit for a couple of hours at the end of the day. And she spoke a bit about the setup she has on the Clydesdale Fitnessing and Friends podcast.
Because I work all day. I'm a digital designer, so I create apps, websites, digital platforms and stuff like that. And I go to train at the evening. So when the gym is completely full of other people, there are classes here, classes there, and I have like 2 meters to train myself. But this is cool. That's also better because then when I'm on the competition floor, that I have the whole lane for myself is like a dream. And so everything is easier for me, you know.
So for many, that's not the ideal setup, especially if you want to make it to the CrossFit Games. But it's interesting the way she manages to turn that negative into a positive, talking about how much better it is when she's actually at Strength in Depth or when she'd be at the Games and she's kind of got all that space for herself. And that's something I noticed about Elisa throughout. There are many situations that we would deem as negative, but she smiles through and turns them into a positive. And she also had to overcome an incredible obstacle. Shortly into her CrossFit career, she is diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So when we think about this challenge, not just mentally having to go through it, but physically the impact it had on her training, for example, she talked about at times not even being able to pick up a barbell. And she gives a huge amount of credit to her coach, Tio, who is able to adjust and adapt her programming. So even on those bad days, she's able to get a session in. And, well, we can see that it's clearly paid off. And for many, receiving a diagnosis like that, well, perhaps they'd want to keep doing CrossFit to stay fit and healthy, but that goal of being competitive, especially to the level of making it to the games, well, maybe this is a reason to stop. But not for Elisa. She actually used this as motivation, as fuel to make it to the games. In fact, notice how she referred to it when she was speaking with Sean and Tommy on Talking Elite Fitness.
That thing made me a little bit stronger every time. And maybe that's why now I managed to cope with this kind of arthritis. This good, maybe someone else could have just quit. Like, I don't want to do CrossFit anymore and that's it. But not for me. I mean, I became like a warrior, and I want to fight until I can. Like, I know that I have like an expiration date, so I will do my best from now to, I don't know, maybe 2 more years on, and let's see where I'll get.
There are people that when they face tough things like you have, they quit or they find an excuse to feel sorry for themselves. And then there are people like you who have the strength to keep fighting. Where do you think that comes from?
I have no idea.
So I found it interesting that she refers to this as sort of knowing she has an expiration date. And that means she's got to do as much as she can now before she hits that deadline. And she reached her goal. She's made it to the CrossFit Games. And when you saw pictures of her from the events or you saw her on the live stream, she's smiling, she's happy. She just has such an incredible attitude towards being at the Games. Now, I was able to reach out to Elisa and talk to her about her Games experience. So first I was asking her about her favorite moments, and no surprises there. It was, of course, the skill speed medley. And she says that's because it was, the first event in the Coliseum, and she just got goosebumps going into that stage there with all the crowd around, people cheering. I mean, I think personally it's probably because she picked up a top 5 finish, which of course is going to make that event all the sweeter for her. And I think someone could be critical about that being your highest finish when they say, well, yeah, but there were cuts. So, Tia got cut on the first heat. But when you look at the way she won her first heat, you can understand why she made it to the top 5.
As there's the error of execution here. Should you go a little too fast than you're supposed to and you bounce outside of the box, start over. That heel touches the ground, start over.
Elisa Fuliano is on to...
Oh, that she didn't even have to do it.
Well,
yeah.
She did not have to do the pirouette, but she still did. Now here comes Rebecca Fuselier next to her. So Fuliano did not need to do the pirouette, still executed it, and now she's neck and neck with Fuselier, and now it's going to be a foot race to the finish, and Fuliano's going to get the best of Fuselier on that.
I mean, she's able to add in an extra pirouette there and still win the heat, so I was not surprised to see her make it to the final 5 in that event. But I also asked if she had anything she wanted to share with other people about her experience there. And I'd just like to read what she said, because I feel she sums up the point of this video far better than I could. So she said, I just wanted to say that I'm so happy, even if I didn't make it through the cuts, because I don't know how many athletes in history made it to the Games, being a full-time worker in an office, training 2 hours per day in the late evening, and above all, having rheumatoid arthritis. So just to be here for me was such a dream. I'm so proud of myself for not giving up, and I hope I can be an example for all those who have a dream and they want to reach it. I thought I had to quit CrossFit in the last months, and now I'm here competing at the CrossFit Games in Madison, living my dream. I want to thank with all my heart also my coach Tio, who with his great work has allowed me to get here. I just wanted to say to whoever has a dream to never give up. If you want something, just put all of your effort and mind into it. Give your 200% for it, and you'll make your dreams come true. So I wanted to share that because I feel she really sums up why I wanted to make this video. I think she is an inspirational athlete in the obstacles she's been able to overcome, how hard it's pushed her and motivated her. Instead of pulling back, it pushed her forward. And I think that's inspirational for anyone that's come across something that they could potentially see as ending that dream they've been chasing. And yes, she finished 35th at the CrossFit Games. But when you put that into context with how many people sign up for the Open, how many people made it to quarterfinals, the battle she had to put up at semi-finals, well, we can see what an incredible feat that was for someone who is working full-time and has a serious medical condition that could be limiting what they're able to do. I haven't even mentioned the fact that she's from Italy and what that means for the Italian community to see one of their athletes make it to the highest level of the sport, and the knock-on effect that could have for the growth of the entire Italian CrossFit community. But you know, once upon a time, this was the norm. Maybe not the rheumatoid arthritis, but athletes working full-time, only being able to give so much time to their training, and yet being able to make it to the CrossFit Games. But more and more we've seen this shift to full-time athletes, or at least athletes that are working within the CrossFit space that is allowing them to dedicate more and more time to training. But Elisa's example proves that even if you don't have the perfect circumstances with dedication and effort, and yes, probably a good background or foundation in sport and fitness, and a good heap of natural talent, you can still make it to the highest levels even when your circumstances aren't perfect. Now, Elisa referred to her expiration date, but it's still a few years off, so I really hope we get to see her at the Games once again. But it would also be interesting to see what other athletes are able to break through to make it to the CrossFit Games, even if they've got these limiting circumstances. But I suppose a big question is, how far can someone in this situation make it? Has the birth of training camps, has the ability for some athletes to train full-time meant that their gap between those that are part-time and full-time is going to become something insurmountable? I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. But what do you think? Is it possible for somebody that's doing CrossFit part-time to really make a dent or a big impact on the field when we've got these athletes that are training full-time? Let me know what you think in the comments. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a future video. Or for my Italian friends that are watching, ci vediamo alla prossima video. Grazie.